Hey guys, thanks for attending today. An AIA sanctioned presentation. I'll just leave it for a couple of minutes, 3 minutes, just to allow a couple more to join, and then I will introduce the speaker, and we'll go ahead with the presentation. Okay, hey guys, welcome to today's presentation presented by Everlight. Just wanted to let you know that the meeting is being recorded. If you need to share this with anyone after, there will be a video recording of this. So the meeting has been recorded as of the last couple of minutes. There is a Q&A section. You can drop any questions you happen to have throughout the presentation, and they'll be answered in that Q&A section. So if anything pops up after one of the slides, just throw your question in there. We'll do our best to get that answered. So yeah, today's presentation, the webinar, is AIA and IES approved. It will be presented by Barry Young of Everlight. My name's Dan Lappin. I'm the Western Regional Sales Manager. Barry is our Eastern Regional Manager. Just a quick intro on Barry, just a little bit of a background for you guys. Barry Young, LC, he's had numerous different positions in the lighting industry. He was a local lighting rep back in the day in New York City, and he's got many, many years of experience working with manufacturers, with reps, with distributors. He's affiliated with the National Council of Qualifications for Lighting Pros. He's the current president of the Long Island IES branch as well. He's involved in working with museum committees, and yeah, he's got extensive experience in the industry, working with numerous different types of clients. So I will hand that over to Barry. He'll take it away and he'll run you through today's presentation, which is the science behind LED strip lights, key factors to ensure quality and performance. All right, Barry, take it away.
Thank you, Dan. And ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you may be located. It is my privilege to present to you this AIA approved presentation. As Dan said, the science behind LED strip lights, key factors to ensure quality and performance. Dan covered a little bit about my bio. He's exactly right. I started out as a salesperson, just knocking around Brooklyn and Queens, calling on distributors and showrooms. I moved into specification sales with the design community, fell in love with the design community in general. And since then, I've been a sales manager for manufacturers, working with agents to cultivate business through the design community. I am active in the IES, and I encourage you to do the same. Now, the AIA requires me to read this disclaimer in full, so just bear with me. Program credits. The program is registered with the AIA/CES for continuing professional education. As such, it does not include content that may be deemed or construed to be an approval or endorsement by the AIA or any material of construction or any method or manner of handling, using, distributing, or dealing in any material or product. Questions related to specific materials, methods, and services will be addressed at the conclusion of this presentation. Credit earned on completion of this program will be reported to the CES records for AIA members. Certificates of completion for non-AIA members are available on request. Let me translate that for you in regular language. The AIA and the IES does not endorse any manufacturer, any brand, any installer, any distributor, any showroom in the lighting or electrical industry. If you have an accreditation that is not AIA, where it's self-reporting, if you're an engineer, if you're an interior designer, if you're like me and you have an LC, just reach out to us and we will supply you with a certificate for your records. I want to welcome you to the presentation. I have a friend who's not in lighting, but she's retired law enforcement. And her favorite expression is, it's not a problem until it's a problem. And the same could be true for lighting. If you buy LED strip lights through a big box store, through somewhere online, you don't know what you're getting. And it may just illuminate beautifully when you originally plug it in, but you are working on high-end marquee projects. And because of that, you need to be able to stand behind the project and know that it's going to work for the lifetime of the space that you're working on. So it's very important of choosing quality components. We're going to be analyzing standards that the IES has set for LEDs and LED strip lighting. LM79, LM80. We'll discuss the new TM30 standard. And this help you to make an informed decision for the lighting projects that you're working on now or projects down the road. Now, a few learning objectives today. After attending this webinar, and when I mean attending this webinar, I mean paying attention to the webinar. I don't mean doing 3 things at once and there's a little earbud in your ear and you're conducting your everyday life. But if you are really attending this webinar and paying attention, you will be learning the following. You'll be learning to understand the components of LED strip lighting, the importance of high quality LEDs, the importance of a quality printed circuit board, which the LEDs sit, the substrate, about the amount of copper that goes on there for heat dissipation, because if you're not getting heat away from an LED, the LED is just not going to work. You'll be able to analyze and interpret essential technical specifications that you may already know, but we're going to refer to it again. Color temperature, color rendering, efficacy, not efficiency. There's a difference between efficacy and efficiency, and I'll explain it. And understanding the impact on different lighting applications. You'll be exploring and understanding different different industry certification, different standards, LM79 for performance, LM80 for lumen maintenance and life, and the new and widely accepted TM30 standard for color rendering. And finally, you'll be really able to identify the right LED strip light for various applications in architectural settings. If it's going to be used for general lighting, accent lighting, task lighting, or just beautiful ambient lighting. And you'll be able to consider all the requirements. Now, I consider designers to be artists. and your blank canvas is the next project that you're working on. And you're painting that canvas with the tools in your arsenal of the type of lighting. And for years, you've been using recessed lighting, you've been using track lighting, you've been using pendants, you've been using wall sconces. And the last few years, LED strip lighting has been an accepted genre of lighting, and it's now part of your toolkit. And after today's presentation, you'll be able to really understand how it fits in to create that larger artistic piece that you're working. Now, the importance of choosing the right LED strip light. It's like specifying any other type of genre of lighting. IP rating. I know you heard of it. The big number is IP65. Well, what does it mean? Well, ironically, the IP65 rating or IP rating, which means ingress protection, is nothing to do with lighting per se. It's actually a standard from the International Electrotechnical Commission with IP standing for ingress protection. What it means is how much dust and moisture could get into an object. Now, there's something you use every day of your life that already has IP rating. It's your cell phone. Your cell phone is IP65 rated. And what do you do with your cell phone? You may bring it into the bathroom. You may put it on the vanity, step into the shower, and as that room fills with moisture and condensation and steam, your phone is going to be fine. When you step out of the shower and your hands are wet and you touch the phone is going to be fine, providing you don't drop it into a body of water. That's a completely different IP rating. But when someone approaches Dan and myself and they'll say, well, I want to use LED strip lights outside, we say, well, what do you mean outside? And if somebody says, well, I want to use the LED strip light under an eave, in a cove, in a canopy, in a gazebo, I want to embed them in the railing of my deck, perfect. That's considered damp location. That's exactly what IP65 is for. If you said, well, I want to line my walkway from the deck to the pool and there's sprinklers and it rains a lot, IP65 isn't going to be good enough. You may have to go to an IP67 rating or higher. Technical specifications for power consumption, voltage compatibility, or vital. What does that mean? Well, the LED strip light in and of itself needs to be energized, and it's energized by a driver. And the driver is very important because usually LED strip lights are low voltage, 12 volt, 24 volt. The power coming into your home is usually 120 volt. So what that driver does is two things. It steps the voltage down to operate the LED strip light, but it also has a wattage capability to make sure the LED strip light is powered beautifully and evenly. And those are the decisions you need to look at when you're specifying a driver along with how much LED strip light you are using. Now, the beauty of LED strip lights is that they're low profile, they're flexible, they're cuttable in the field. You as artists could illuminate architectural details in spaces that you never dreamt of before. And you're really making a statement. You're really putting your signature on your project by doing so. Now, what do you look for in an LED strip light? Well, you're going to look for quality components. That's number one. You're going to ask for verifiable performance. Now, what's verifiable performance? Any good architectural LED strip light maker is going to have their products third-party tested to verify exactly what their claims are. If the LED strip light that you're using doesn't do that, it's not going to perform well. I mean, it's almost like going on a job interview. You know, the HR person or my VP could ask me a question. Hey, Barry, you think you can do this job? And I'll go, yeah, sure, I could. They're going to go, okay, but I need 3 references. So that's exactly what you're doing. You're getting references for the performance of the LED strip light. You want consistency. So I'm going to make up a project right now. Let's say we're working on a hotel lobby and there's a cove where the ceiling meets the wall and I have 300 feet of LED strip light in that cove. I want that cove to illuminate the ceiling consistent from start to finish, end to end. I want the same color. I want the same level of brightness. I want it to dim evenly the same way. And consistency is part of that verification process, because if you know it's going to produce well, you're going to have consistency. Lifespan. Is this some fly-by-night company out of a box somewhere, or is this a company that's going to make a quality product where you don't have callbacks on the job afterwards? Certifications. Is it UL listed? Is it safe to use? Does it have a third-party certification? A warranty. Guaranteed, if a company gives you a 90-day warranty, they don't back up their product. Look for something where it's more like years, 10, 12, 15-year warranties. And then finally, the human component. Is there somebody to call? Is there somebody to email? Is there technical support? Is there customer service? Could I get someone like Dan and myself on the job site to help you? So look at quality components. When you look at an LED strip light, really it's not much to look at, but it's pretty complicated, a piece of hardware. You have an LED chip that has a phosphor. We're going to get into how the phosphors are colored and the importance of that phosphor. And then you have, it mounts on a printed circuit board. You need to make sure it's mounted with the proper solder. You have resistors. The resistors have to do their job and mount it properly. And at the end of the LED strip light, there's going to be wiring that goes to those drivers. What kind of gauge is the wiring? Is the wiring flimsy? Is the wiring going to stay on? Is it going to break off during the installation? So those are the things you need to look for. The right components ensure long life, high efficiency, good thermal performance, meaning that it dissipates heat. Does it have a good degree of copper on the back of it to dissipate heat? And what you're going to get is color consistency, accuracy, and also safety for the installer and for the space where it's living. Verifiable performance. What you're looking at on the left of the screen is an example of a manufacturer that is putting the results of their testing. And there's a lot on there, but everything on it makes sense. The most prominent is what you see here is a spectral distribution curve. Now, this is not new to LEDs. This has been around since the days of fluorescent metal halide. But in the lighting spectrum, it shows what it's highlighting. And this particular LED strip light is actually highlighting reds. You're also going to see the metrics of TM30 and color temperature. And here you're going to see how the color temperature is designated. And also there's other graphs on there. Candela curves, how that light is coming off the finished product. What curve does the light actually form? Coefficient of utilization is known as CU. How much light is actually coming out of the luminaire, in this particular case, the strip that's mounted in a housing with the lens? How much is coming out and landing on the surface? How much is being wasted? And when you have reports like this that are LM79 reports, you know you have a quality product. Now, LM79 was adopted by the AIA specifically for LEDs. Your product should always have an LM79 report. Brightness. Vernacular of luminous flux is brightness. Everyone says brightness, but the technical term is luminous flux. It's how much light is coming out of the light source. Now, it's measured in a metric we all know is lumens. When we understand and have a relative understanding of what lumens are, then we'll be able to determine which particular tape with the certain amount of lumens is right for the right application. There are LED strips that have 200 lumens, 300 lumens, 500 lumens. That lumen rating will help you determine, do I use that for accent lighting? Do I use it for task lighting? Do I use it for ambient lighting? Maybe I use it just to light up an architectural detail. But always refer to that LM79 report that provides detailed photometric data and showing that the LED strip meets the specified brightness levels and distribution patterns, because you have an idea of what should be illuminated, and then your LED tape should do that job for you. Power consumption and efficacy. If you notice, I didn't say efficiency. When it comes to energy, efficacy is your key word. Now, we use efficacy in our everyday life if we drive a gas vehicle. Efficacy in our everyday life is miles per gallon. We buy a gallon of gas. How many miles can we go? 20, 30? Do we have a hybrid vehicle? Will we go 70? In lighting, the metric is lumens per watt. That's efficacy. When I purchase a watt of energy, how much brightness, how much lumens do I get? One of the reasons, not the only reasons, that LEDs have replaced almost every other lighting technology, from metal halide to fluorescent to incandescent to halogen, is that its efficacy has surpassed those other technologies, plus the color and plus how the light behaves. But that's the real reason. LEDs were invented by accident in 1962. A scientist was creating a printed circuit board, and one of the diodes was illuminating. And for years and years, all LEDs were used for were indicator lights. I left my toaster oven on. Oh, I left my brake light on my emergency brake in the car is on. Just light for you to see by. That's luminance. Illuminance is how we live under light. And really, up until the last 10 years, LEDs did not provide adequate luminance. Once it provided that luminance, once its lumens per watt increased dramatically, then it became accepted. Now, if you look on towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see Title 24 JA8. And what that is, that's the California Energy Commission's code. Title 24 JA8 is a new amendment. The good thing about codes is that there's amendments as things change. And what they're saying over at the California Energy Commission is efficacy equal to or more than 45 lumens per watt should be used. That should be a slam dunk today. That's actually a very light threshold. You should have no problem getting lumens per watt at 100 or more. Color temperature. Correlated color temperature. The metric for correlated color temperature is kelvins, right? So for temperature, we have Fahrenheit, centigrade, Kelvin. The only difference is when we say Kelvin temperature, we do not say degrees. So when something is 2700 Kelvin, we say 2700 Kelvin. We don't say 2700 degrees Kelvin. Now, when you look at that picture of that strip up there, what you notice, the low Kelvin temperatures, 2700 and below, starting with 3000, the light is yellowish, it's amber. The higher the Kelvin temperature, when we get to 4 and 5000, it's white and it's bluish. People use the terms warm and cold when describing color temperature. The amber colors look like a flame, and we call it warm temperature. And it highlights the warm temperatures in the spectrum, the yellows, the reds, the oranges. The high color temperatures look like ice and snow. Therefore, we say it's cool. And that highlights the blues and indigos and violets of the color spectrum. So color temperature is how light appears. It doesn't matter how we look. Color temperature is we look at light and we determine if it's warm or it's cool. That's the appearance. It's like looking at the sky. And if you're looking at the Title 24 J8 requirement, they're saying don't use less than 4000 Kelvin in a space. Now, we refer to the Title 24 because Light, I may be in New York, but Light is based in California. But the California Energy Code is so comprehensive and it's been around so long that states around the country, no matter where you are, say, if your lighting products meet the California code, it's good enough for us. So that's why we're using that as an example. Color rendering. While color temperature is how the light appears, color rendering is how we appear, how objects appear. So we have red apples. They're all bathed in 2700 Kelvin light, which is a nice, warm residential color. Except if you notice, what happens to them as the color rendering moves from 70 to 80, 90 to 100? When you get to 100, it's just an improved color. You see nuances and depth. So color rendering, it's an older metric that goes from 0 to 100. 100 represents the sun. 100 represents objects in perfect lighting. Now, up until recently, it wasn't that easy outside of incandescent and halogen to get into the high 90s. Ceramic metal halide was in the high 80s. Fluorescent, for the most part, was in the mid 80s. So if you needed really good color rendering, you had to rely on incandescent or halogen, which used a ton of energy and burned out very quickly. Now with LED strip lighting, it's really not that hard to get color rendering of 95, 96, 97. Let's look at our friends at the California Energy Code. Please don't use anything less than 90 CRI. Well, that's very easy to do today with LED strip lighting. But there's something underneath that, R9. What's R9 value? What is that? What's R9 value? You're looking at it right here. It's red. Why did that happen? Even though CRI has been used forever, it's a lot to be desired in how it operates. CRI standard was adopted by the IES in 1965 based on ideas from 1938. And in 1938, these 8 pastel colors were the only colors used for lighting to determine color rendering. So a light source was illuminating these colors, and how these colors responded with absorption and reflectivity calculates the CRI. Now, what's wrong with leaving out red? They didn't include red. That's a big problem. Red is the most important color in the lighting spectrum to highlight. And the reason is, as human beings, no matter where we are in the world, no matter what our race, we all have red blood under our skin. Lighting that highlights reds make us look better, make us look healthy, make us as humans look vibrant. So after many years of just relying on these drab pastel colors, the IES adopted an R9 value as a standard. They also added a few more pastel colors. But over the last 10 years, and it's being embraced more and more as time goes by, the IAS created a new standard called TM30. TM just stands for Technical Memorandum. The IES is always coming out with technical memorandums. And TM30 is a lot more comprehensive because instead of 8 colors or a 9th color or a 15th color, TM30 uses 99 colors, which is much more representative of how the world looks. And the color for the TM30, their metric is known as Fidelity Index, RF, 99 colors. Now, when we run TM30 reports, we cover a ton of information. Now, what's interesting, it looks complicated, but it's not, because it's all visual. Instead of looking at random numbers and trying to figure out what they mean, what's 79 versus 90 versus 90 versus 97. These color vectors and gamuts that are created tell you right off the bat what colors that your light object, your light fixture, your in this case, your LED strip light is highlighting. So let's take a few examples. Now, one more thing. It says TM30-24 in the text. It's a living document. Originally, it was TM30-15 for 2015. There was a TM3017. Now we're up to TM3024, meaning it was recently updated in 2024. That's the beauty of these parameters. They're always going to change. We're not going to be stuck the same way. We used 1965. We used technology from 1938. So we're really moving forward. It's a little more progressive thinking. So let's look at the gamut index. So a light source is in black on this background, this graph of all these color hues. Black represents perfect lighting. The red line is the particular light source that you're testing. So let's look over here. And these are going to be on the specification reports that the LED manufacturers will provide the fixture companies. So this source here, what's the characteristics of it? Well, on first glance, it's very low in red. Doesn't highlight reds at all. Not good in the greens. Greenish yellow, it oversaturates. It highlights too much greenish yellow. Over here, it's highlighting too much of the deep indigo blue. Now, is there a place for lighting like this? Sure. Maybe my friend does lighting for the Long Island Aquarium. He would love lighting that highlights blues because he lights these giant aquatic tanks. When would you never use this? Clothing stores. I wouldn't use it in clothing stores. I wouldn't, if I was a designer and I had a room of swatches on the wall of thousands of pieces of fabric, I wouldn't use it there because all the great colors that I have to offer won't be highlighted. As opposed to this source, which is right on the money. The test source and the reference is essentially the same. You have a little oversaturation on the reds. You have a little undersaturation that's negligible under the green and yellow. But for the most part, This is pretty good lighting that captures all the colors in the lighting spectrum. Remember that from high school, Roy G. Biv. Red, orange, yellow, blue, green, green, blue, indigo, violet. And if you look at the fidelity index, you're going to see it. This sits at 100. Just beautiful lighting. Now, here's another factor of TM30, which actually goes back to a reference from 93 years ago, but it was so brilliant it's relevant to this day. Remember that lobby I'm talking about where I have my 300 feet of LED strip light in the cove? Consistency is very important to me. As I said before, I want the color, I want the light output to be the same throughout. How do I choose an LED strip light that's going to do that for me? And I'm going to rely on a source that was created in Europe in 1931 called the International Commission on Illumination. And what these genius physicists did was create a mathematical model, plotting it on an XY axis of where color lives based on their frequency. Now, let me take a step back for a second. Where does color and light come from? It comes from the sun. You have the electromagnetic spectrum comes from the sun, works its way to Earth. Most of that spectrum is invisible. Most of it's deadly, gamma rays, X-rays. But as you come closer in to the center, you're going to have radio waves or television waves, UHF, VHF, AM, FM. At the outer bands of visible light, you're going to have ultraviolet on one side, infrared on the other. But then you're going to get to the dead center of that band, and that's visible light. That's the spectrum. That's that Roy G. spectrum that I've spoken about. And each color is dedicated to its own frequency of sine waves. And the metric for that is nanometers. So each color travels in its own nanometer wavelengths. Now, let's get back to this ellipse known as the McAdams ellipse that was created. You have this curve here that's called a black body radiator. If you took blue, green, and red and converged that color and mixed it perfectly, that's how you get white light. The black body radiator runs along where that narrow band of white light is created. Now, what do we see on these little hash marks here? Those are all friends. The color temperatures in Kelvin, all the way from warm, all the way to deep violet. Look at that, 10,000 Kelvin. My friend at the Long Island Aquarium would love 10,000 Kelvin for his light sources. But for the real world, for architectural indoor spaces, we're looking right here at about 3,500 Kelvin. That's where regular lighting lives. Now, here's an inset to that black body curve, of the black body radiator. You see those little circles, the little targets? You ever hear the term binning, LED binning? It's a metaphor for where LED phosphor, the phosphors that create the color of the LEDs, live along that spectrum. And you hear the expression tight binning. What it means is that the LED phosphors all come from the same binning. I like to refer to it as neighborhoods. So along this radiator, we say in New York, but along this radiator is little targets that represent binning. The tighter the binning, the more architectural the lighting. The more tighting the binning, meaning the phosphors come from the same neighborhood. When they come from the same neighborhood, they look and act the same. Going back to my ceiling in my hotel lobby for my 300 feet of LED strip lighting, that's how I get consistency. When I choose 3-step or less McAdams ellipse binning, that's how you get consistency. So you know when you specify an LED strip light that's been tested on this ellipse, you know you're getting tight binning. Now, this may be a bit off topic, but why would you ever have a case where you're specifying lighting that's not tight binning? Yeah, street lighting. Why not? The tighter the binning, the more expensive the product's going to be. But street lighting, if I'm driving, I just want to see somebody crossing the street. I don't care if their scarf matches their socks. Now, when would I care if scarf matches socks? If I'm designing lighting for a clothing store, then you better believe I want tight binning. All right. lifespan. People think LEDs live forever. LEDs just don't live forever. They live for a long, long, long time. Halogen and incandescent had life of a matter of months when they were switched on and off all the time. The LM80 standard, which is the AIA standard specifically for LEDs, is a standard of life and lumen maintenance. If you look, LM80-21, so it was last updated in 2021. When your LED strip lights are tested, they're put into a lab and they're run for hours. Now, they can't run them for the life because that would take decades, but they do small test cases. So look at the California energy requirement to understand that. Lumen maintenance of 86.7% of initial output after 6,000 hours. Lumen maintenance of 86.7% of initial output. See, LEDs just don't burn out. They slightly degrade. They just get a little dimmer over time. To the naked eye, it's not even negligible how little it happens. And all California is saying, listen, if you're going to use products in our state, and the rest of the states around the country adhere to this, over 6,000 hours, you need almost 87% of the original light output. Now, what's 6,000 hours? Well, there's 24 hours in a day times 365, and you have 8,760 hours in a year. Now, outside of convenience stores or hotel lobbies, maybe, what light is on all day, all night, all the time? Usually, your lighting is maybe on in a residence 6 hours a day. So if you do 6 hours a day times 365, just under 2,200 hours a year. So essentially, let's round it down to 2,000. So essentially what's going on is after 3 years of life, of 3 years of running, you still have about 87% of the original light output, which is very critical. Now, the lifespan of at least 15,000 hours, you're going to get way more than 15,000 hours. You may get lighting approaching 50,000 or 70,000 hours. The weakest link in any LED strip lights system or any LED system is the driver. The driver has a printed circuit board. The printed circuit board has rated life. Usually the rated life is 50,000 hours. All rated life means is when they're tested, half will fail at 50,000 hours, meaning half will work. So let's say, for example, you have a system that works for 50,000 hours. At 2,000 hours a year, you have a system that's going to last for 25 years. That's why people say LEDs last forever. It's longer than most building leases. That's longer than most people stay in their homes. Certifications and compliance. There's several of them. UL, ETL, it's about safety and performance. CE and RoHS, that's out of Europe. That's about health and safety. Could you touch the LED product without a problem? Could you throw it away and put it in the garbage without ruining the environment? And also, we've been relying on Title 24, but every utility in every state has compliance of what their minimum requirements are going to be for energy use and light output. Warranties. I've said it before. You get a warranty that's 90 days, it's not worth the product. Unless you're designing for some 12-year-old kid who has a YouTube channel and he wants to light up the wall behind him, but that's not the projects that you're working on. You're working on high marquee projects. I believe everything is a museum. There's uppercase M museums and lowercase m museums. Uppercase M museums, the Museum of Modern Art, the Field Museum in Chicago, the Getty Gallery in LA, those are museums. But when you're working on a high-end residence, that's a museum. A lowercase m, but it's a museum. A store that sells $5,000 handbags, that's a museum. An auto dealership that sells $100,000 vehicles, that's also a museum. You want to make sure that the product that you're putting in there, LED strip lights or anything, has a company that has a warranty. When a company that has a warranty that's 10, 12, 15 years, you know that product is good because they wouldn't back it up that long if it weren't. Human components. In this app world today, it's like we don't speak to people anymore. However, how important is it that you could get someone on the phone or someone via text or email when is something shipping? I have a question about technical support. I have a question about driver or control compatibility. Or I need somebody at the job site. That's what Dan and I are for. Ease of use. An LED strip light is a small component in a larger scope of creating a specification. So usually the LED strip itself is just not put into a cove or put into an eave or put on a wall or in a ceiling or in a cabinet without some sort of housing. So you have aluminum housings for different purposes. Right here, here's 3 examples of 3 different housings. I have a recessed housing here with perforated aluminum. That's a mud kit. So the drywall installer is going to put this bare aluminum channel in the wall when he's putting on the drywall. He's going to spackle over this perforated area. They're going to sand, they're going to prime, they're going to paint. It's going to be finished. The electrician returns. He puts the LED strip inside the aluminum, which serves as a protective housing. It serves as an additional heat sink, and it serves to control the lighting. It keeps that LED strip light straight and plumb and true. And when you snap on an architectural cover, being it opaque or frosted, it actually controls the lighting. It diffuses the lighting. You remove all the dotting. You get this beautiful glow. Next to it, an example of a surface mount. Now, you get surface mounts any shape. This particular surface mount is meant for countertops or display cases. It casts a nice wide beam of light to cover a countertop. After the counters are in countertop and the cabinets installed, electrician puts the housings in. He then lays in the tape. Each time they make the drivers accessible because eventually at some point they may need maintenance. And then the cover goes on to give you that beautiful glow. Here is an example of another recess, but this is for woodworking. The carpenter will route out a groove. He'll finish off the wood beautifully with stain and varnish and sand and polish it and sand and polish it again. And when it's completely beautiful, he's going to put the aluminum housing in there, and then with flanges, and then the tape goes in, and this beautiful cover goes on top, and you have an integral part. Now, there's other components. You have to specify a driver. Let's go back to my cove lighting in my hotel lobby. I need a driver that steps down the voltage so the LED strip operates. I need it to have enough juice for 300 linear feet. I may need 2 drivers, perhaps, to get it done properly. I have a controller that's an interface for the controller that the LED company makes, the LED strip light company makes, or a controller that makes it compatible to a larger in-house control system that you may be specifying. And then there's connectors. So I have connectors to put 2 separate LED lines together. Maybe there's a little partition I need to go through. Maybe I have 2 separate runs. Maybe I have turns. And then I have an inline connector. The importance of a specification grade inline connector is that it's so tight that the distance between the diodes on the tape are not more at the point of connection than they are during the run, meaning I won't have gaps in the lighting. It helps with my consistency. Years ago, and if you watch old movies or you go into an old job site, you'll see fluorescent in coves, and there were constant shadows because the sockets would butt up against each other, and the sockets weren't illuminated naturally. So you don't have socket shadows in LED strip light and coves. Now, also, going back to our IP65 talk, make sure the company has IP60 rated connections. And that, my friends, is a conclusion of our Evora Light presentation on LED strip lights and the science behind them. I want to thank you for joining us. You could reach out to Dan and myself here with our emails. I am Barry at evoralight.com, and Dan is DLAP, D-L-A-P, at evoralight.com. For everyone at Evora Light, thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your day.